Hello, guys, and welcome back to the FPL Duo. We're back for another stream. This is the transfer tips video for Game Week 4, the buy, sell, hold, and ignore series. So we're going to discuss who you should be buying and selling ahead of Game Week 4. How you doing, Jordan? How's your day going?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Hope everyone else is having a nice day as well. But yeah, we're at Transfer Tips Game Week 4. It's coming fast and swiftly, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about in terms of players that obviously we saw do in Game Week 3. But yeah, a lot to talk about the Transfer Tips.
Yeah, let's talk about the players that we should be looking to buy first of all. Also, if there's any issues with my Wi-Fi, guys, do let me know in the chat. Because I feel like my Wi-Fi signal is quite low, but hopefully you can hear me. You can hear me well. So let's start off with Raheem Sterling as the first buy for Game Week 4. And obviously, Jordan, this was an inspired transfer in for you last week. You bought him in for Bruno Fernandes, I believe, and obviously Sterling went and done a 19-pointer after his goal. Was it 2 goals, wasn't it, or goal and an assist?
2 goals and assists.
Yeah. Okay, so let's discuss Sterling. So he's had 3 appearances so far this season, and he's got 2 goals and the 1 assist. Obviously, that brilliant performance he had against Luton with a 19-point haul. We just take a look at his fixtures. We'll come on to that in a sec, but his price has risen. He's now 7.1 million, and his ownership is at 10.9%. I do believe that's gonna skyrocket come Game Week 4 deadline. But yeah, Game Week 4, he's got Nottingham Forest at home. That looks like a nice fixture, I'd like to think. Bournemouth as well in Game Week 5. After that is Villa, Fulham, and Burnley. So the next 5 fixtures do look very nice. And if you are looking to bring Sterling in, he's an explosive FPL asset. And when he does well, he has that potential to get that double-digit haul, as we saw. We know previously Raheem Sterling's been an expensive asset in FPL while he was at Man City, or around the 10 million mark, 10.5 million. And he has also had 200-point plus seasons, I think 3 times for Man City. I know last season Sterling was disappointing, but you think every Chelsea player was disappointing last season. However, maybe there is a slight turnaround now. Poch is there, and Sterling seems to be playing back to his form that we saw at Man City. So I think Sterling, he is very tempting for me to bring in. I will come on to my transfer plans, obviously, on Thursday, but I think if you don't have Sterling and you saw, is it a knee-jerk reaction? Is it a knee-jerk move bringing him in after the 19-point haul? I don't know, but you look at the fixtures, they do look good. And obviously me and you spoke about Raheem Sterling, Jordan, last week. What do you make of it as an owner? And you look at the next 5 fixtures, would you recommend bringing him in?
Personally, in my opinion, I don't think it's knee-jerky at all to bring in a player like Sterling. From before that moment, obviously, when they were against Luton in Game Week 3, Sterling had 0 goals and no assists after playing Liverpool and West Ham. So I wouldn't consider it knee-jerking because of the fixtures that Chelsea do have. After Liverpool, West Ham, they become much easier, like we saw with Luton at home, where Chelsea won 3-0. Now, that could be because obviously Luton are struggling, newly promoted teams and whatnot, but you can't look past Chelsea's improved form compared to last season. And in particular, certain players like Raheem Sterling did show that in the previous, obviously, 2 fixtures, especially in the West Ham one, where obviously we saw him do some dangerous runs into the box, breaking through that West Ham. And obviously in the Luton game, he overloaded their defence completely with his dangerous runs. So yeah, buying Sterling, I think at this moment in time, probably the best thing you can probably do, in my opinion, just because of the fixtures. I think Chelsea have the best upcoming next 5 fixtures in terms of difficulty compared to the rest of the teams. Now, his price is expected to rise again tonight. Expected. If not tonight, it is definitely tomorrow. So for you guys who who think price rises are important to you, obviously look out for that because he is expected to rise again. Obviously, his ownership has hit 10%. It was literally when I brought him in 2.2%. So he had a massive increase in ownership. Lots of FPL players now are bringing in Sterling after his 2 goals and 1 assist from a Luton game. But yeah, I think definitely Sterling is a must buy for what fixtures show and the form he's shown.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I think he's definitely one I am looking at bringing in this week. Definitely, top 2. I have another player that we'll come on to. But yeah, guys, Sterling for us is a buy ahead of game week 4. Let us know what you think. Are you bringing in Sterling, or do you think, it was Luton and he won't replicate that in the next couple of games? Let us know what your thoughts are on bringing in Raheem Sterling. For us, he's a buy. Let's move on then to the next player on the list as a buy. And that is actually James Madison, as you can see from the thumbnail as well. Now, we've included Madison again because of his performance as well in game week 4. It looked like, game week 3. Now, we know James Madison, there was rumors that came out midweek that he was going to miss out on the weekend. However, that didn't come to fruition, and Madison did actually end up starting that game. And obviously, we saw him get the goal. And again, Madison for me is another player I'm looking at thinking he's a must-have soon in our team. Because, 1 goal, 2 assists in 3 games so far. And if I know the stats don't mean everything, but his expected goals per 90 and his expected assists per 90 is actually a lot higher than Sterling's underlying numbers. So 0.45 expected goals per 90 and then 0.58 expected assists per 90. And just watching Spurs and watching Madison, it seems to me like everything is going through Madison, and he is the key man for Spurs. So I really like Madison as an asset. I do think I want him in my team, but we might be in that boat now where we have to pick Madison or Sterling this week. And we take a look at Madison's fixtures. The next 2 obviously look great. Burnley away and then Sheffield at home. Game week 6 and game week 7, slightly trickier fixtures, obviously. The Arsenal game and then Liverpool at home. It's not the easiest fixtures. However, game week 8 looks great again with Luton. So Madison does actually have very nice fixtures after that as well. In game week 9, I believe, he's got a nice fixture. So I still think Madison's a good pick, guys. Even though that game week 6, game week 7 is a bit tough, but we know he's going to play 90 minutes if he's fit as well. Now, his ownership is higher than Sterling's, just under 18% now. He's a lot more expensive, or slightly more expensive, by about 0.5 at 7.7 million. So if you want to go cheaper, you could go Sterling and save that money. Or if you want someone, that is going to play 90 every game as well, and he's pretty much involved in everything Spurs do, I think Madison is also a great option, and the fixtures look nice, as I mentioned. What's your thoughts on Madison, Jordan, watching him play against, was it Bournemouth, obviously getting the goal, and then looking at the fixtures all? What do you make of Madison and bringing him in potentially?
Yeah, personally for me, I wish we could fit in 6 midfielders because Madison would definitely fit into my team perfectly, I think, going forward into game week 4. For a short-term hold, I'd say Madison definitely worth it for the back-to-back newly promoted teams he has. Burnley away and Sheffield United at home. Both teams who have conceded massively, like Man City conceding, I think, 3 goals against Sheffield United. Obviously, Burnley have conceded goals to Aston Villa as well. So definitely fixtures you want to be aiming for in terms of Spurs, as Madison is heavily involved in the goals, as he's scored 1 already. He's also assisted 2 of them for Spurs. But yeah, I personally wish I could fit Madison in for these next 2 fixtures because I think he would relish in both of them. Just because of how heavily involved he is in matches, it's hard to not go for Madison. He's had a lot of price rises, 2 price rises since obviously the start of the season, and his ownership is on the rise. I am going to be very scared about what Madison will do in game week 4 without being an owner of him, because I think he can do some real damage, I think, to those non-owners. But for a short-term buy, I think Madison is pretty good for what the fixtures are for Spurs. But current game week 6 and 7, you may want to, consider maybe taking out Madison for those fixtures because they are much more difficult, and the fixtures do swing. But I think for game week 4 and 5, definitely Madison as a buy.
Yeah, I agree. I think Madison is a buy for this week. I think he's actually a decent hold because even after the tough games, Luton in game week 8 could be a very nice fixture for him in terms of points. So I think Madison actually could be a longer term hold than a lot of people think, because I think he's going to be one of those players that just tick along and get you points. Assist here and there, goal every now and then. I think he's going to do that. And we saw at Leicester, even in the struggling Leicester side last year, he carried on ticking over, getting goals and assists. I think it was double digits for both goals and assists last season, which is quite impressive for a team that did get relegated at the end. But yeah, Madison is a buy as well as Sterling. So let's move on now, Jordan, to some players that we think you should probably be looking to offload ahead of game week 4. And this one could be a bit controversial, maybe not. Let us know your opinions, guys, in the chat. Do get involved. Also, there is a few of you in here watching. If you are enjoying the content, all we ask for, from you guys is to just drop a like for us on the video. It really helps support the channel. So please please share the video as well, and make sure you are subscribed if you're watching for the first time as well. So let's discuss Martinelli, Jordan, because I don't think you own him. I am a Martinelli owner myself, and I think, I don't know, we'll ask the chat. If you own Martinelli or an Arsenal midfielder, apart from Saka, because I think Saka is a glue guy, we're going to hold him probably for the season. Are you looking to get rid of your second Arsenal attacker? Now, for me, I am seriously contemplating getting rid of Martinelli now. He's had 3 appearances so far and just 1 assist in game week 1. His underlying numbers aren't too great either. You take a look at his expected goals per 90 at 0.24 and his expected assists per 90 also at 0.14. Now, the fixtures, again, I don't think they're not bad. If you just look at it on paper, Man United, okay, that could be a trickier game. You'd expect Man United to kind of step it up. I know they haven't been great, but that is still a big game against a top 6 team. Everton away looks like a good fixture with how Everton are playing right now. Tottenham, Bournemouth, so it could kind of backfire taking Martinelli out. I'm very aware of that. It could backfire. However, he's 8 million. He's more expensive than the likes of Madison and the likes of Sterling. And I don't know if he's going to provide as many goals and assists as those two that we spoke about previously in the next 4-5 fixtures. Now, look, it could be like I said, a luxury move. You don't have to get rid of Martinelli, but I think I'm going to be going there just because if I want Sterling, I don't want to sell my Man United assets yet. I don't think Saka's going to stay. We've got Mbeumo or Eze or a 6.5 million midfielder, and then last slot, I think Martinelli is the one we could be taking out. I don't know if you've watched much of Arsenal, Jordan. If you've caught some of the Arsenal games, what have you made of Martinelli? If you had him, would you be selling him as well? Because I think he could be the one to sell, to bring in the likes of Sterling, the likes of Madison, even a Foden potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Martinelli in the past, I think last season, he was a bit frustrating because we mostly all had Martinelli at one point and he didn't really deliver. I think in 8 matches consecutively, did not get a single return. And once we got rid of Martinelli, that's when he returned points. So he's one of those players that can blow hot and cold that we saw mostly last season, where he'll have a run of blanks and then suddenly burst out with points. I think this is a similar situation where we're seeing Martinelli's had a lot of involvement, I say, in the attacks for Arsenal. It has been unfortunate in not receiving much of the action in terms of scoring or getting more assists from his attacking threat on that left-hand side. And as we see with Arsenal, it's a variety of players that we see get the goals and assists. You've got Odegaard, Saka, even Xhaka at last season. He had a bit of involvement. There's a variety of involvement, and it's all split up in between them individually. So it's going to come a time when Martinelli will obviously get goals and assists. It's just timing it right, I think, for people. But in terms of here and now for Martinelli, I think he can be a sell, especially if you have 2 Arsenal. I think you can get away with 1. Personally, I've only had Saka since the start of the season, and so far it's not done too bad for me. So I think you can get away with just having 1 Arsenal asset in your team, and potentially you'd want to keep Saka highly owned, ownership through the roof. But with Martinelli, his ownership is considerably much lower. Less risk against you if you don't own Martinelli as well, if he does score due to his ownership, and it's also dropping as well. His price is still the same at 8 million, but I think as well for low valued players at the moment are doing much better, like Wemo, Madison, Mitoma, etc. I think Martinelli can be a sell, especially with the fixtures are a bit snakes and ladders for Arsenal, and it just showed in that Fulham draw. Arsenal don't quite look like they're clicking yet either, but they still can score goals. But I would say Martinelli is currently a sell, I think.
Okay, let's swiftly move on to the next player on our list as a sell. And again, this one might come, I don't know, actually. It might be controversial, it might not be, because Mitoma is very highly owned in this game so far. 43% of managers have Mitoma in their squad. He's, it's cheap, 6.6 million. He's had that one price rise since the game's launched. He started off the season pretty decent. You'd like to think, 3 appearances, 1 goal, 2 assists. So that's not bad. His underlying numbers in terms of assists, 0.58 is pretty good. But again, I think the reason why we've put Mitoma on here purely, I think, is the fixtures. If you're playing the fixtures, Newcastle at home in game week 4, Newcastle are a tough team. Man United away, going to Old Trafford. Brighton don't have the greatest record there. I know they won was it last season they did win, but generally, you'd expect Man United to be strong at home. Bournemouth at home, okay, in game week 6, that looks like a nice fixture, but then Aston Villa and then Liverpool in game week 8. So, there's 3 red fixtures in there. And if you are playing the fixtures, Mitoma can go and score in these games. But for me, if I had Mitoma, I would be looking to offload personally, just because I think that when the fixtures turn a bit tougher, I'd rather have, the likes of Sterling, etc. Even someone, if for the next 2 weeks, I'd rather have a Bowen in my team who's got Luton, etc. Rather than a Mitoma. Let us know in the chat, though, guys. Do you agree with this? Because obviously you're an owner of Mitoma, Jordan. What's your plans for Mitoma? Because I don't own him. When you take a look at the next 5, are you going to just hold him because you believe that he can still return in these games, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think despite the fixtures becoming much harder now for Brighton, perfect at the start of the season, obviously going for Brighton assets because their fixtures are much more easier. But come game week 4, now where the fixtures change, I still think Mitoma can be a player that you can probably get away with, maybe off fixture here and there. But you may want to go for another player that has better fixtures and expected to outscore Mitoma at the same time. And obviously these fixtures that Mitoma has up, it has the chances of him scoring in these fixtures, especially Newcastle and Man United, are much more lower than the other fixtures Brighton have had previously. But yeah, I think if you're going for fixtures, you'd want to go for another midfielder that has better ones long term instead of sticking with Brighton, because most of us, I think, have double Brighton, including Estupinian in defence. So he's another player also who you contemplate on keeping or not. But in terms of Mitoma, I think he can be a sell for the time being until the fixtures improve for Brighton again.
Okay. That's the sells out the way then. We're going to move on to players that we think you should be looking to hold on to, maybe give another chance for another week or so. And let's bring up Marcus Rashford as the first player that we recommend you probably should be looking to hold. Now, Marcus Rashford has been transferred out by a few of you managers looking at this data on the website. Rashford, he is priced at 9 million, so he is pretty pricey. He hasn't scored so far this season in 3 appearances. However, he does have 2 assists. He does have a tough game coming up on going to Arsenal away. That's a tricky one on paper, but he did score against Arsenal, I believe, last season. But again, with Rashford, I don't know if everyone agrees. I've seen a lot of people, want to sell Rashford. But for me, I think, game week 4 and 5 don't look the greatest on paper. However, after that, the fixtures are pretty good longer term or even mid-term. So Burnley, Palace and Brentford after that, nicer fixtures. And for me, Rashford now, it looks like he's back playing on the left-hand side. We saw him win a penalty running at the fullback. So For me, I think Rashford is a hold. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. I think, yes, Arsenal's tough, but after that, the fixtures are okay. And for me personally, I wouldn't want to get rid of Rashford if I had him. So that's my thoughts on it. What do you think of Rashford, Jordan? Are you an owner?
No,
You don't have Rashford, do you?
no. I didn't start off with Rashford in my team. I
Yeah.
just had Bruno.
Okay, yeah.
That's it.
What do you make of it though? Obviously, Man United haven't been great, but we assume with the fixtures, as we saw against Nottingham Forest, when the fixture turned again, they did put, they scored 3, and we see the longer term horizon after Arsenal is the fixtures do get better.
Yeah, I think the most important aspect that we saw from Nottingham Forest in terms of Rashford is his position change. Prior to Nottingham Forest game, we saw Rashford playing centrally, and as you guys saw, he was just isolated up front. There's no one really there with him to really support him. It's just him as a lone forward, not receiving the ball, having less than 10 touches in first halves of games. And come that Nottingham Forest game, we just see a switch around where he played naturally on the left-hand side, where he's more effective in terms of position. He prefers the left-hand side, not central. And I think this is an important change in terms of when the fixtures do swing for Man United, because, well, even the Arsenal game, Rashford does like playing at the Emirates. So he could potentially have a surprise goal, his first goal against Arsenal. I don't knock Rashford's form. I still think he's a pretty good asset if you still have him in your team. It's definitely
He's very highly owned still, only 40% of managers, so he's very highly owned still.
Yeah, there's still managers that have faith in Rashford. I reckon you can give him, say, more chances. I think come the fixture swing in game week 6, and if we see Rashford play on that left-hand side more, I think obviously he will get more goals and more assists like we saw him get last season.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Let's move it along then to the next hold on our list, and that is Ollie Watkins. Now, Ollie Watkins, again, similar to Rashford, has been transferred out. Quite a few managers are looking to sell Watkins for Jackson at Chelsea, which seems like a popular move. A lot of us are selling striker like a Watkins to bring in Jackson. However, is that the wisest decision? We'll discuss now, because you take a look at Watkins. Yes, he hasn't scored so far this season with the 3 appearances and no goals. However, he does have 3 assists. And also, for those that didn't watch the last game in Aston Villa's big win, he was quite unfortunate not to score. He did have a big chance. He also obviously got the assist, but his underlying numbers in terms of expected goals per 90, 0.42, isn't bad. We know Aston Villa are one of the better teams so far this season. They've scored a lot of goals already, and I think us non-Watkins owners have kind of got away with it. He should have scored by now. So I think you take a look at his fixtures again. Liverpool away. Now, you could say that's a tough fixture. However, Liverpool aren't keeping as many clean sheets. Also, as we know, Van Dijk, after his red card, will not be available for that game. So Liverpool defense becomes weaker with no Van Dijk. So you could just hold Watkins against Liverpool. I don't. Liverpool don't really keep many clean sheets, and the defense can be got, as we've seen. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ollie Watkins does score against Liverpool in game week 4. And then after that, Palace, Chelsea, Brighton, Wolves. I think they're good fixtures. I know Jackson is attractive as well with his fixtures, but I think, if you've not got anything else to do, you could remove Watkins. But if you've got other fires to put out, I don't think it's the worst idea holding Watkins. 8 million. His ownership's about 23%. He's been a bit unlucky not to score so far. I think he's easy. He could be an easy hold just because, we've seen how well Aston Villa are playing this season. What do you make of Villa in general, Jordan, and obviously Watkins' involvement in their games so far?
Yeah, I think Watkins has been very important, I think, in terms of involvement for Aston Villa. I mean, he's assisted 3 of the goals that Aston Villa have scored, so I wouldn't knock Watkins yet, because those 3 assists are just as important as scoring, I believe, because without the assists, then you haven't got the goal scorers putting them in the net. But I think in terms of Watkins, these fixtures, I think they're pretty alright for Aston Villa. I think they're a very attacking team, and Watkins being up front as well with a new players like Diaby, who works really well with him. I think he's yet to score. Probably, I wouldn't knock it in that Liverpool game, as you mentioned. Van Dijk, with his red card suspension, has weakened that defence of Liverpool, which looked vulnerable even with Van Dijk in defence. So that opens a massive window, I think, for Watkins to score his first goal of the season, I think. And obviously after that, he's got Crystal Palace at home, Chelsea away, Brighton at home, Wolves away. So the fixtures are pretty average and obviously capable for Watkins to do well in. So I'm impressed with his form, even though he's not scored yet, but only got 3 assists. I think if I had Watkins, I would give him another chance and hold him.
Okay, cool. There's the holes out the way as well. Before we move on to the ignores, please make sure you guys like the stream and also make sure you have subscribed as well to the channel. Okay, cool. Let's move it along to players that we think you should be looking to ignore for Game Week 4. And these are players that are being transferred in by they've had an influx of transfers due to their performances in Game Week 3. First one on the list is maybe not a surprise if you watch our channel. James Ward-Prowse is on the list. Now he's been transferred in. His ownership's just about 4% now. He is 6 million, so he's pretty cheap. He did score on the weekend, which fair play to him. 2 appearances, 1 goal, 2 assists is not bad at all for a midfielder priced at 6 million. I think he has become a decent signing for West Ham. He probably will go on to be a good signing for them. However, again, we've mentioned with Ward-Prowse, he does rely, it seems, on set pieces, etc., corners. And look, he might get you another assist. But again, the fixtures aren't great. I think if you're taking a 1-week punt on a West Ham player, you probably go for Bowen against Luton. If you're wildcarding Game Week 5, let's say, if you're going for an early wildcard, then 1-week punt, I'd be going for a Bowen or an Antonio, not a Ward-Prowse. Again, fixture against City, Liverpool, Newcastle as well in Game Week 8 is not. I wouldn't want to target those fixtures. Maybe after that, look at West Ham as an asset. But for me, I think James Ward-Prowse is an easy ignore because we have valuable midfield slots that we want other players there like a Sterling, Foden, Madison, Saka, etc. And I don't know if I'd be wanting to put James Ward-Prowse as a midfield slot in my team. What's your take on it, Jordan?
Yeah, James Ward-Prowse, the set piece specialist in fantasy football. He's been a great transfer for West Ham. I think definitely a good replacement for Declan Rice. But yeah, James Ward-Prowse, he's done really well so far this season. 2 assists, 1 goal. His goal coming from open play, ironically. We don't really normally see James Ward-Prowse scoring from obviously open play. We usually see him scoring from free kicks, like we saw last season for Southampton. I think, though, I definitely think James Ward-Prowse is a wait and see. Similar to Chelsea, I want to see how James Ward-Prowse does. I think further along in terms of fixtures. I think it's too early to jump on the boat to go down the route of James Ward-Prowse yet, because we don't know whether he will keep obviously this up in terms of scoring from open play, and whether he'll just be the scorer from just set pieces like we saw with Southampton. So I think for now, especially with the midfield slots, we've only got 5, and we want to keep those 5 for consistency. We don't know yet if James Ward-Prowse is consistent with obviously scoring from open play and assisting as well from open play. So yeah, I think it's a wait and see. I think you should ignore him for the time being, see how he does. I'll say in the upcoming fixtures that West Ham have. They have looked pretty good though, I will say, West Ham, but I'll say hang on before bringing in James Ward-Prowse.
Okay, let's move it along again to the final player on the list as an ignore, and that is Romero at Spurs. Now, again, Romero is quite highly transferred in by a lot of managers due to obviously his clean sheet in Game Week 3. And also he did score in game week 1, or was it game week 2, I believe it was. Or was it game week 1? He's got the 1 goal so far this season. Is the ownership 7.7%, so still under 10%, who's low owned. Yeah, I think he's at a price rise. He's now 4.6 million. But again, I think the potential for Romero to get you attacking returns is still low, in my opinion. I know he scored that goal. However, I don't see that happening on a regular basis. Fixtures, as we mentioned with Madison, they are pretty good in the next 2. But if I was looking to bring in a Spurs defender, it wouldn't be Romero. It would be Udogie on the left-hand side, because he has much more attacking threat going forward, linking up, putting crosses in. And we saw Udogie got the assist on the weekend. So I would rather go for Udogie if I wanted a Spurs defender. I think Romero's, chances of scoring is low. He might get you a set-piece goal for a header or from a corner. But again, I don't see that happening too often this season. And even if I was looking for another defender, I'd rather go with Pedro Porro or someone like that with the wing backs, rather than a central defender who's not going to get you as much attacking return. So that's my thoughts on Romero. He's, for me, an easy ignore. I know he's got a few clean sheets with Spurs, but I just think it's not worth it personally for me. What do you make of it, Jordan?
Yeah, I can see why people are flooding towards Romero. I mean, he's had 2 clean sheets. He's had a return each game week. I mean, 7 in the first one in that draw against Brentford, where he did score that goal, and obviously against Man United, where Spurs won 2-0, and then Bournemouth, where they won 2-0 as well. So I can see why people are flooding towards Romero, just because of he has yet to blank still. So a lot of people have probably been convinced in bringing Romero into their teams. But yeah, I agree. I think going for someone else that has, I say, more attacking threat, because I don't think Romero's going to do this week in and week out, especially when Spurs' fixtures do obviously change after game week 5, because they got Arsenal away and then Liverpool at home, and the threat of clean sheets may be upon Romero in those 2 fixtures. So if he doesn't get attacking returns, then you're not going to get any points really with Romero, if not attacking, if not clean sheets. So I think it can be ignored. I think preferably you want to go for Udogie, like we mentioned, because even if he doesn't get a clean sheet, he has a higher, I think, ceiling to get an attacking return, as we've seen in obviously the games for Spurs, especially in that last one where Udogie did get an assist from Kulusevski's goal. So yeah, I think he can be, again, easily an ignore for this game week and for the rest.
Okay. So those are the 8 players, guys, for the buy, sell, hold, ignore series. Let us know what you guys think of our picks. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the chat. And yeah, we'll love to read out some of your comments. I've had a few come in, so we're going to read a couple out. FPL Agent is in the chat. Says, hello, guys. Hello to you, FPL Agent.
Hello.
Hey, guys, says Elliot. Yeah, welcome, Elliot. Alex says, I'm thinking Eze is a big buy this week. Big differential. He was unlucky not to return v Sheffield United, but then has 2 terrible fixtures. He now has Wolves, Fulham, and Nottingham Forest all at home in the next 5, and he's on penalties. Thoughts on Eze, Jordan? He has blanked pretty much in every game so far. He was talked about as a potential gem at 6.5 million, along with the likes of Mbeumo and Mitoma. He's the one that hasn't sort of hit the ground running in that sense. However, the fixtures turn for him again, and they look nice. The home fixtures as well. I think is a good buy potentially.
Yeah, I think he could be a decent buy. I think it's similar to Sterling, where his fixtures were a bit more difficult. Chelsea struggled, but now because of the fixture swing, I think Eze can bring a bit of fortune for those owners who are looking to bring him in or currently have Eze. As Alex mentions, he has been unlucky not to return, especially in that Sheffield United game. He should have definitely deserved the goal in that one. But with the upcoming fixtures with Wolves, Fulham, Nottingham Forest, all 3 teams have conceded goals. So I do expect Crystal Palace to score, if not in all 3 of them. And Eze could potentially be the one to do that, whether it's from open play or, as Alex said, he is on penalties. So could Crystal Palace get a penalty? Eze is the one to take it, so he could score from those too.
Elliot also says Madison seems more explosive than Sterling. Obviously, going back to our chat, we had it with Madison v Sterling. I'm not sure. I do think Sterling potentially. I think Sterling might be more explosive, if I'm being honest. But I think Madison's still a great pick. Dan also says he really wanted Madison last week. Sterling pick went well as well, and obviously Gusto. Lucked out by having Gusto as my 4 million defender. Obviously, Gusto, another player that did really well.
Yeah, 16-pointer from Gusto in Game Week 3.
Krogsberg, I'm considering bringing Madison in for Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, look, that could pay off. But again, I wouldn't want to be selling Bruno. For me personally, I know a lot of people aren't as keen on the United assets, but I think because Bruno's on penalties, again, we saw that getting the penalty against Forest. I think we've seen that this season with the likes of Romero, even Salah. Getting penalties is quite a big factor, I think, because it seems to be a lot of penalties so far this season. And yeah, I'm happy to hold Bruno, but I think Madison definitely, if you could fit him in, he's definitely a transfer I do like the look of. Alex, however, says I wouldn't be too worried about Madison. Away to Burnley isn't as easy as it looks. Villa and City are both unreal teams. Yeah, it could be a shout. Obviously, Burnley don't concede too many goals, but again, Spurs are playing nice football. They look like they've got a bit of a spring in their step under Postecoglou. It's an interesting one to see. Is he a must-have this week, or can you wait a week and then bring him in? But Alex says I'm doing Martinelli to Eze this week and then Buemo to Madison next week. So he does want to bring Madison in, but probably a week after.
That's interesting. Buemo to Madison. Very interesting moves there.
Dan the Man says Martinelli to Sterling. Yep, I think this something it could be a popular move potentially. That is something even I'm considering in my team, if I'm being honest. Only thing which Martinelli has in his favor is that Jesus is back and does a lot better with him instead of Nketiah. Yep, fair shout. Alex also says, I think the next 2 games will suit Rashford as Arsenal and Brighton will both play a high line. Yeah, that's a fair comment as well. Man United probably going to have less possession. You'd like to think against those 2 teams. I'd expect Arsenal and Brighton to probably have more of the ball. Maybe not as much so Brighton, but Man United will play that counter-attacking style, and that could suit a player like Rashford to hit Arsenal on the break, maybe get a few goals on the counter-attack. If they aren't, tight at the back, you could see something like that happening, as we've seen Rashford do before. Against a lot of teams. Finally, Tendai as well with a comment. All right, lads, I feel like a mug from last week. I said Sterling was massively underlooked, then didn't buy him. Ouch. Son might be the same tip for this week. Yeah, I think I've done that a lot of times last season. I said buy this player. I didn't buy him, and then they go ahead and get a massive haul. And it is annoying when you sometimes don't follow your gut, I guess. I've done that before. But yeah, look. Sterling's still a good pick, I think, going forward. So you could get him in this week. Still got good fixes coming up. And Son as well, it could be a good shout.
Yeah. Son has shown he can have a go at scoring. I mean, he's been a bit unlucky, I think, as well, for not getting hitting the net.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up here, I think. We've just gone past 40 minutes, I think. I'm trying to say a big thank you to everyone who has watched so far. If you haven't already, if you are still in the stream, please do drop a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the video as well if you can on your socials. And try to get us to that 1,000 subscriber mark. That is the next target for the channel, guys. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. We are back again on Thursday for the team selection video, 7 p.m, same time, UK time. And then again, Friday for the deadline. So yeah, normal schedule. But yeah, guys, join us Thursday, team selection. Anything else you want to add, Jordan, before we wrap it up?
Just thank you guys for watching. It's always appreciated. And yeah, like the we like always your contribution in the chat. It's always appreciated too. But yeah, take care, guys. We'll see you Thursday for the team selection, as there will be some interesting moves that we have planned going forward into obviously Game Week 4. But until then, take care.